Hello, this is Dale Matthews. This is Inside News. That's a poison pill over my shoulder. This is an important show. And now here's Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Yeah, always look at your prescription drugs to make sure that you don't see that little symbol on it, because that would be a poison pill. It's sometimes inserted into things to change the outcome.
Well, we told you before that County Attorney Wally Hicks brought to the commissioners the wording that has been worked up to put an advisory question on the ballot. Advisory questions don't hold the power of law, but they are asking you, well, what do you think about this? And nobody has seen. We're the first ones to announce this. I'm pretty sure that we are. I don't know who else would. What the wording is going to be of the summary, not just the ballot question at the top, but also the summary.
Mm-hmm.
And unless I miss my guess, you're going to watch this and you're all going to be pretty alarmed, because this is the poison pill that we predicted would happen if these two commissioners don't get through the primary. So there's no other choice other than to read it. Sorry about that, but it's only on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it because I'm the only one with a copy. I don't think any other news media have this. I don't think so. And then Mike's going to respond. Okay. We've already seen the caption and the ballot summary. That's the thing that goes at the very top. What nobody has seen until today is the write-up for it. So I'm going to start with the caption and the ballot summary. This is for a ballot measure, and it is an advisory question. They just say, oh, what's your opinion? Shall we kill you and eat your children? What do you think about that? Okay, just the question itself that they would ask that is bad. Okay, so here's what it is. Sorry, I have to look down to read this. Caption: advisory question on public safety agreements. See, already they're saying it's a public safety thing. So, hey, pay attention to this. Okay. Question: in your opinion, should Josephine County enter into an agreement with the state for public safety services? Ballot summary: the outcome of the election on this advisory question will not be binding. It will provide information to the Board of Commissioners while the board formulates policy.
Yes. In other words, they may take the outcome of this question into consideration, but they're going to do what they want to do anyway.
Shall we kill you and eat your children? That's our question for today. Yes. Chapter 753 of Oregon Law 2013 provides that the governor may proclaim a public safety fiscal emergency if the governor determines, with a lot of help from the commissioners, thank you, that a county is financially unable to provide an adequate level, whatever that means, of public safety services.
Yeah, it's probably subjective.
After making the proclamation, the governor may enter into a written agreement with the county's governing body involving public safety services. The Board of Josephine County Commissioners would have discretion as to whether to approve the written agreement. Nothing in there about the public. If approved, because they were voted in, you see, the agreement would take effect upon adjournment of the next legislative session in Salem. The agreement would last up to 18 months and could potentially be renewed for an additional 18 months. Such an agreement can provide that the state would pay for half of the cost of the agreed upon public safety services, and the county would pay for the other half.
Okay, well, I believe as of right now, we're coming up with what, about $3-4 million.
That's correct.
so that they would pay the other half, which still is about 4 million shy of what they claim to want to have.
What the people voted for. The people said, this is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to spend any more. This is
right. No, but what I'm saying is that they have claimed to want they have actually claimed to need like 12 million in order to run the jail and do the little things that they want to do. And so this agreement would have us with 8. But I mean, I believe with SRS we had like 10 here, right?
Right. And what the commissioner said at these little backroom meetings is, well, then I guess we would be obligated to raise property taxes.
Yes, which is what they want to do. And listen, I got to tell you something. Wow. I mean,
please don't force my hand. Oh, you're forcing my hand. Oh, please stop forcing my hand. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I mean, no, listen, we think that we're voting for someone to represent us and how we would respond on certain things. Well, we made a really, add about 50 more reallys in here. Big mistake when we elected Cheryl Walker. Cheryl Walker's
he's in on this too.
Oh, yes. There's no question about that. But the driver here is Cheryl Walker. She's a left-wing whack job progressive. And this is what you get with that sort of thing, is that I am going to shove this down your throat for your own good. That's what we're getting here. And
this is what's getting shoved down our throat. This right here. And this is backed up by people who I don't think they're left-wing wacko progressives, by Darren Fowler, the mayor of Grants Pass.
Listen, you know what?
President of the council.
Here, let's clarify some stuff, because I know the lines get blurred a lot when you get down here to this local level. And the lines have been blurred nationwide in terms of what's the difference between a liberal progressive and a conservative Republican, or just a conservative, as you know, Republicans have sort of removed themselves from that or tried to distance themselves from it. But anyone who pushes for massive government control and greater taxation is progressive in my book. I don't care what they have after their name. Okay. After their name, instead of R or D, it should say Rhino or Dino, or maybe just the O, just a 0 with a mark through it. Uh-oh, we got a lockup.
On me? Am I locking up, or are you?
Well, you froze there for a second, but we never know whose bandwidth is the issue here. I think that it doesn't really matter from whence it's coming. What you have to look at here is, do we want government to supply us with the solution to all of our problems all the time? And because of the fact that we have either said yes to that question or have been apathetic about answering negatively on that question, this is what we're getting right now. And we get people calling us stupid, morons, idiots when we don't vote for more funding for them. So they're fed up. They're really fed up. They are at a point now where they just want to do. They want to be kings. They want to be queens. They want to just institute something and ram it down our throats and laugh while we squirm about it. And especially Cheryl Walker. And I can see.
This is no exaggeration.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't at all.
We've shown you the videotape of the city councilors literally laughing at us, with Cheryl Walker and Keith Eck there laughing along with them about how the people have still got their hand out asking for services they don't want to pay for. We don't have our hand out. We're not asking for services. We're saying we don't want to do this. And Dan DeYoung and the mayor and Keith Eck and Cheryl Walker are all there laughing about us as stupid voters, and they just don't get it. Ask Roy Lindsay and he'll tell you a long blathery story about how nobody's making any sense but him.
Well, how do you fancy yourself a constitutional someone who governs by the
Well, it looks
how
like.
do you do that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we didn't hear that. It fancies themselves what, Mike? Because I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, if someone fancies themselves someone who governs with by the Constitution or by the Constitution's limitations on government, and studies the Constitution so they have an understanding what that means, how can you then be an advocate for ramming anything down anybody's throats? It doesn't matter if the city is burning down. If the people say we can't afford the water to put it out the fire, and they all vote and say, hey, let it burn, then that's what it is.
Well, see,
and that's a bad analogy. That really is a bad analogy, but
sorry, we have this long leg. What you guys may not know, or if you watch the show a lot, of course you know this, Mike goes to a weekly constitutional study group. And there are people in this constitutional study group who purport to be constitutionalists. However,
which is
at least one or more of those people are some of the people who are trying to say to you, you're idiots, you're all idiots, you're all idiots. I'm the only person, not me, but they are the only people who know what's good for us, and we're not doing as we're instructed, and so we're going to have to be punished.
I don't get it. I don't get it. These people, they took an oath. Okay, I don't find this thing to be. To me, I think it clashes with. The Constitution, where and I guess states can make their own rules as to whether or not a tax increase has to be passed by a vote of the people. That's ultimately what this is. This is a tax increase that forgoes the the initiative process and just goes, gives the power to these people to force taxation. And it obviously is born out of frustration.
Yes.
With people who keep voting no on taxes, and it's a way to slam them on the head with this great big ball peen hammer, 3453. And
Salem surely does not want this kind of reaction from other counties, from other citizens throughout the state saying, I kind of like the fact that the citizens are saying no down there. They don't want to even take that risk. Now, we're the only people, Mike, that have this next page, the only ones. Let me read this, okay, so everybody can hear it, and then you stop me anytime you want to, okay?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Explanatory statement for the voters pamphlet. Previously, in 2012, the Board of County Commissioners sent a non-binding question to the voters. See how this is starting already. The commissioners asked at the time whether the current level of service provided by the county's criminal justice system meets the needs of the community. They didn't say, are you willing to pay for it? They just asked, is it meeting your needs? The voters responded 25.56% yes and 74.44% no. Since that 2012 question, the voters have considered 3 different levies for funding the county's criminal justice system. None of these levies passed. In July of 2013, Oregon's legislature approved HB 3453. That bill which became part of Chapter 753, Oregon Laws 2013, allows the governor to proclaim a public safety fiscal emergency if the governor determines that a county is financially unable to provide an adequate level of public safety services. After making the proclamation, the governor may enter into a written agreement for public safety services with the county's governing body. The Board of Josephine County Commissioners.
Hang on. Before you go any further, I have a couple of questions about this proclamation of a public safety emergency, a public safety funding emergency. I want to know what the criteria for that is, and if there is a stated criteria within 3453, or if it's just an arbitrary call on the part of the governor or the governing body of said county.
The only criterion by which this is decided is the input that the governor is getting from the commissioners.
Okay. Right.
That's it.
Right. Which
there are sole representatives.
Okay. But insufficient level of public safety. They tried to tell us that we had that before, but the numbers don't show that. And if the numbers don't show that yet again, I don't know what you're going to do about this if these guys get primaried and they get the answer to the question that they want to get. There's nothing to stop them from dropping this on our heads. In fact, they'll probably be more inclined to do so. I know that here's how it would happen. Keith and Cheryl would vote for doing this. Simon would not, because Simon has a couple more years to go, and this would drop the hammer on his head like you wouldn't believe.
Why would the other care? Why would the other two even care?
Right.
It's
right. They wouldn't care.
It's their chance to build their legacy. Look, we brought you funding, and look, we only have to pay half of it. And the fact that the governor has taken over, well, that's okay, because what will that mean? It's going to mean nothing to Cheryl and Simon. Think about it. It won't mean anything to them. They don't need to worry if they're in charge or they're not in charge, because they're not going to be. But the next people will be hobbled by this.
Right.
It's the poison pill.
Yeah,
and they don't care how this turns out. It looks like they're asking you. They already know the answer, but it's instructive that this summary starts off with saying, well, the people have said it's not enough. There's your answer right there. They don't need a question.
Yes, but the thing is that it's the result that they got on that question had a lot to do with how they asked it and how they had been laying the groundwork for years, telling you how bad it is here. And
that's right.
It's so unsafe and all of this. And it's so unsafe. It's so unsafe. It's so unsafe. What do you think of this? Oh, okay.
You know what's happening with their feedback to Salem. Well, it's a small, disgruntled group of people who get into these meetings and they just raise a ruckus and they start yelling and they just take over the meetings, and then people listen to them, and it's a small group. Of course, it's a small majority, but that's all that it takes. And we've tried to reason with them. They're not listening. Governor, we need your help.
Yeah.
Done. They're not going to be in office. What do they care what the repercussions are? And they could say, ha ha, we forced them to take the poison pill. They don't need this advisory question. This isn't an advisory question. This is not even a warning. This is their plan.
Right. That is exactly correct. And the thing is that that they're just putting this out there so that they can have an immediate rationale for action. That's all. That's all it is.
All right. There's a bit more.
Okay.
The Board of Josephine County Commissioners, which is the county's governing body, that's our fault, would then choose whether to approve the written agreement. If approved, the agreement would take effect upon adjournment of the next legislative session. We've heard this already. The agreement would last up to 18 months, and it could be renewed for an additional 18 months. A renewal may require additional state legislative action. Such an agreement can provide that the state would pay for half of the agreed upon public safety services, and the county would be obligated to pay the other half.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where are they going to get the money, Mike, to pay the other half?
Well, and it's not even stated in there whether or not the state would have the power to unilaterally raise your property taxes to meet the a burden of everything that's being provided.
Look at the difference between these two pages. The last part, sorry, it sounds like I'm interrupting him, but we've got a delay. The last part of the previous thing I read to you, which we've already seen, this is what went. Oh my gosh, I gotta read this. Such an agreement can provide that the state would pay for half of the agreed upon blah blah, and the county would pay for the other half. Mm-hmm. Here's the wording of the summary, and the county would be obligated to pay for the other half.
Right. Well, and the thing is, okay, now that doesn't even also that does not even give you a total of what the amount is. They could say, oh, half. Oh, really? Well, our half will be 5 million then, and your half will be another 5 million. And then we'd be obligated to come up with the additional amount. But it's not even clear that we wouldn't be hit with the price tag for the entire thing, because who's to say that the state isn't going to come in here and say, well, we have to raise all of your taxes enough to meet not only your half, but our half too.
And that's what this says. It says may. And who do you think is working up the numbers? Who's working up the numbers? It's Cheryl Walker. It's Keith Hick. It is Simon Hare. It is Arthur O'Hare, our finance manager, and Jay Meredith, the finance director for the city and the head of SOS. He is both. This is what we need. We've tried to explain it to these stupid people. They're not understanding us. As ask what's his name? He's bald. Roy Lindsay. They don't understand. They refuse to understand. I tried to explain it to them. They refuse to listen because they are ignoramuses that just refuse to even listen.
Yeah, we're just dumb.
Okay, the county may fund its half of the cost of public safety services through existing sources of revenue, a tax on services with access to 911, such as telephones, or through any assessment the governing body is lawfully capable of imposing. Property tax levies require voter approval and may not be imposed by the governor or the Board of County Commissioners. H-Bill 3453 provides for funding through an income tax, however, because the Josephine County Charter prohibits establishing an income tax and cannot be lawfully imposed here.
Wow, you know what? And it's strangely very, very similar to what Bruce McFarland was saying at the weekly business session yesterday.
Yes,
he was talking about an income tax, and this. And it's funny because, listen, Cheryl knows this stuff. She knows the backward and forward of this. You know that this board has got this 3453 dialed in. So she knows
we're not doing what they're telling us to do.
Right. She knows that there may well be a possibility of the state, levying an income tax on us. And, that was brought up in front of her, and she went, oh, well, we can't do an income tax. We're not going to be doing an income tax. That's like Bill Clinton say, I'm not having an affair with anybody right now. I'm sitting in a chair,
Well, You're right. It's a good joke, but in addition to that, we sat with Wally Hicks back when he would talk with regular citizens,
Mhm.
and he indicated several times that our charter has been overridden by state rules or by some judge somewhere.
Right.
All you need to do is
Yes.
find the right judge, and our charter means nothing.
Right.
You think you got protection?
Uh,
This is what happens when we get laughing people like this into office, because they're going to have their way. And we've heard at these weekly business sessions, now children, there's very little that we do. Now that sounds pretty apocalyptic, but we cannot stop these guys from doing it right now. Well, like the city council, they can impose a tax or revoke a vote anytime they want to. This is important. This is really important.
Yeah.
Now, with that attitude,
but wait a minute. Wait. You had said in there, you were reading it, and it says that we can enter into this agreement. Then when the terms of the agreement come down here, then those terms have to be approved by the board. And then, so
only by the board, only
mean,
the board.
Right. And so that would be the opportunity to apply pressure to these people about this, because certainly
what pressure, where we're going to say to them, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be apocalyptic. We're going to say to Cheryl, you won't get reelected. She knows she's not going to get reelected.
Yeah. Well, you
won't
have a point there.
He already knows that.
Okay, but I'm just interested in the timeline of this. So do they make the request in secret and not talk anything about it to the public, period? Hold on to that information for maybe a couple of weeks. Then the thing comes down. They all vote and say, yes, we're going to do this without, they do all of this in executive session. Even though votes are involved, and then all of a sudden we just get the news that it's happening. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see what would stop them from doing that. Look, Wally's involved in this too. He'd be sitting in on these executive sessions. They're not going to vote in an executive session. They would come out, vote.
You know what? I have real deep-seated issue with Republicans who think in this way. And thankfully in our local Republican Party, there is a very small minority of people that think this way. Why are we allowing these people to be in control? Why are we letting the whiners and the squeakers be in control? Why don't we kick them out, tell them go over and be Democrats, because that's what you really want to be. But this, how does Wally Hicks reconcile his conservative Republican values with an action like this?
Well, let me tell you. I'll tell you the announcement that was made at today's meeting. You're just not going to believe this. Wally has been appointed by the governor. Well, he's been suggested by the governor, and all it takes is a signature to be on some state board that's going to be deciding future issues. And it's a huge deal for him. And he's probably going to call in on the 12th. The 12th? No, that doesn't make any sense. On the 14th, Valentine's Day, that's nice, into the weekly business session to give a live report about how that vote went. Well, they're going to vote him in. It's a done deal. So Wally's being already recognized by the governor as being a lovely fellow that's just perfect representative of the wishes of the people.
I just, I don't know what country I'm living in anymore. I guess maybe I just need to get hip with the scene and give up my conservative values and decide that it's just okay. Bigger government's okay. Government dictating to us is okay. Higher taxation and bigger government, that's okay. I get sick of this thing here. I don't want to, be fighting a losing battle all the time. And the problem is, I know that there's a way to win the battle, but you can't win the battle with apathetic constituents here. You're just not going to win it. That you need to mobilize people politically, and unfortunately, we're unable to get even 100 people to show up for a weekly business session. That would be that would be fairly impressive if we could do that, but not as impressive as you would need to be in order to keep this stuff at bay all the time. Because
now at this point, I look prescient. Precious? No, prescient. And, the idea of not just talking about it, but actually running to do something to replace some of these people. Holy moly. This is really awful. I mean, look, we've always known they could do stuff without consulting us. And given the example of the city council, we can revoke your vote anytime we want to. Really? I didn't know that before. These guys are taking lessons from them. And since they can do that, so can the commissioners. And if they lose in May, they're going to force a poison pill on us.
Yeah, they probably will. This is a really bad precedent too, because once the state comes in here, even if, let's say, we elect a couple of fiscal conservatives and they say, they get into the office, they say, we don't need this anymore. Okay. The state will have the option to go, and now you got kooks in there. And we're not going to do what they say. We're going to continue to do this because
they could,
we're going to make it all.
But 3453 says that the elected board of commissioners has to agree. It's kind of like the vampire that shows up at your window. He can't come in unless you invite him in. Okay. Please take over Czechoslovakia. We welcome you with open arms. Okay. And that's what this is about. Once you have, now they can always change the rules, of course they can, but now if you have representatives of the people, actual representatives, and not just representatives of the Rotary Club, and the representatives of SOS and representatives of Jay Meredith and the city council, when you have them feeding back, listen, we've done the research and it turns out this and this and this is not true. What do you mean it's not true? But other guys told us, they were selling you a bill of goods, but they were your representatives. Well, no more.
Yeah.
They're selling us down the river. I'm not, I know that sounds awful, but what else does it end up being?
Well, and I suspect, Dale, that there is no provision in an advisory question for a counter opinion to be published in the voters pamphlet.
Absolutely not. It is against state law. It is against state law for citizens with 10,000 signatures. They cannot put an advisory question on the ballot.
No. That's not what I said. What I said was they're putting an advisory question on the ballot. Is there some provision for citizens to pipe in and put in a counter argument? Because they're making an argument. Oh, yeah. I realize they say they're not making an argument. This is just a question. And I would imagine that they're going to try and bar any counter to it in the voters pamphlet by saying this is just a question. This is
what did Cheryl do last time? What Cheryl did last time is she didn't want a voters pamphlet. Mm-hmm. For the ordinances that were defeated 80% by 80%. She didn't want a voters pamphlet. Well, as she put it, people just put in their counter arguments that doesn't pass the smell test. This is what she said. They'll just buy their way in there. Yeah, that's what we do. Well, yes, we can put these things in there saying, vote no, but that's not really, that's not the entire, this is not an advisory question. This is not them polling us for our opinion. This isn't even a warning. This is their plan published ahead of time. No, this is not a warning.
I understand that, but you know what? I think since we understand this is what this is right now, there's nothing to lose by coming to weekly business session or sending letters or showing up at their office and say, hey, listen, I suspect that what you're planning to do is this. And I want to tell you, and as a matter of fact, I want, and you're going to tell me that I'm crazy because that's what I'm thinking. But if I'm crazy, and you agree that I'm crazy for thinking this, then I need you to vow right now, on paper or publicly or something, that you're not going to drop this poison pill on us. You know, and listen, and then let her stew in her own juices there. I don't think there's anything to lose in doing that. It may not get you anything, but at least, you know, you'd see her, you know, listen, if you were totally clear on it, you just go, no way, we're not doing that. We're flat out not doing that. But you're going to see her start stewing, you know, and then it'll be very, very clear to people. And it really needs to be clear to people. And we need to make the case to people as we go forward that this is what they're planning on doing.
There's only one way, in my opinion, there's only one way to do that. That is to demand that they take the dang question off of the ballot. Because why would you put, I mentioned this half in jest at the beginning, why would you have a question, would you like me to kill you and eat your children? Why would you even ask that question? Why would ask?
It's very, very clear what's going on here. Listen, we have already said we don't want to pay any more than what we're paying right now. Why would we then say, hey, let's have the state come in here and then we'll set some sort of an arbitrary figure as to what our property taxes are going to be? Why would that be, you know, something that we would be for? They know we're not for that. They know we're not for any increase in property taxes. Up to now, we have not been. And they just want to ram it down our throats. And, you know, this is very, very frustrating, because this gets back to where, you know, at some point, government stops listening to you. And after 20 years of you saying no, they say, not only do we not care that you say no, but we're going to make you swallow this poison pill and force you to pay a higher level of property and or income taxes. You know, what's going to happen to the people that are on the borderline there? They don't care about the people on the borderline, or they'll make some sort of a, you know, some dispensation for people that are on the borderline or something there. But they want this thing. And they're not going to take any excuses. They're going to push this thing. This is very, very frustrating, because when you run out of political, you know, method or ammunition to, you know, use in this battle here, then what? Then what do you do?
Well, what did they have to lose? I mean, in some ways, it's like the guy that straps dynamite on him. What do they have to lose? Yeah. They'll go out for the greater glory. Since they have to know, unless they're really foolish, they have to know they're going to lose. So you know what this is. Mike showed you last night a picture of an armored vehicle that, when you see this roll up to your house, they're not interested in negotiating anymore. You know, you're under armed occupation. This is the MRAP. This is the armored vehicle. This, just asking you the question, is rolling up, and this is not officer friendly anymore. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's true.
That just the whole advisory question. I thought that we're trying to figure out, why are they doing this? This is the plan. This is not the question. And they've already said they know what the answer is going to be. So they've already said they know what the answer is going to be. So why are they doing it? Because they're tipping their hand, because they're showing us what's coming up. And if you say to them, now, wait a minute, this isn't good for you politically, what do they care? Why would they care about politics anymore?
Yeah, especially if they're and you know what? I think they will make the decision. You know what? It won't matter. It won't matter if they're reelected or not reelected.
That's correct. Now, Simon will probably say no. I think Mike's right. I know there are a lot of people who hate Simon, blah, blah, blah. I understand that, and there's reasons. Simon will probably make the decision to not back this. It will take two votes. Two votes. There are two people that are running. There's a lot of people running against them. Those same two votes can be on the side of the people. They can be. Okay, they could be. They might be. Well, it'd be nice if they were, but it's going to take two. So even if Cheryl's in charge for reasons that just defy description, Keith is going to have to vote with her. What do you think is the likelihood?
Oh, listen, he'll vote for it. You know what? Yeah, this is disturbing. This is really disturbing.
All right. Let's go back a little bit and criticize ourselves. Oh, you guys are overreacting. This is just an advisory question. This doesn't have any force of law. Why, they're just presenting an option. Why, this is my
listen.
This is my option for the people.
We know who we're dealing with here. Listen. Here's the timeline of all of this for people. Cheryl, Simon, and Keith are at the joint meeting with the city council, and Darren Fowler is begging Cheryl, you got to save us because no one else will. You've got to do it. And she took that seriously. She took that very, very seriously. This is her legacy. She is going to, and listen, she has complete, utter, total contempt for all of us. She didn't have any respect for any of us. And there may be smatterings of that in these other two people. But Cheryl wants to hit us with this. And so does the city council and the mayor. They hate us. Okay? They don't like us. They've stated it publicly. We have video to back this up. So there's no secret going on here. We understand. And as things have moved forward here, she tried her 4 little levies, got shot down. So this fell in right behind it. This is just she was going to try and go the legit route with the 4 little levies, and you know what? We actually would have been better off had they voted to put that on the ballot. At this point, we would have been better off, because then that would have gone and got shut down, and they still would have had this option, but they wouldn't have had their little question there to help rationalize their decision. So we know. Who made up
this question? Who made up the question? Who wanted the question on there more than anybody else? It wasn't Cheryl. It was Simon. Who wanted the question more than anybody else. And Wally Hicks is involved right with them. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a thing where you're right. They're not taking no for an answer. They refuse to take no for an answer. They're belligerent about taking no for an answer. And it was Cheryl and Keith who backed this idea. It was Simon saying, no, let's not do it for the 4 levies. It was defeated 80-20. It was all of the city councilors, with one exception, and the city staff, Jay Meredith again, who pressed for that, and they lost 80%, 78, 80%.
You know what? It is so clear now why they were, having some, that they were thinking hard about what was going on up in Burns and what was going to be the county's response to that. It totally makes sense, because they're about to do something that's, on the order of the king going off the wall here. And ultimately, I can't help but think of, back in England when, they occasionally would tell the king, hey, you better get back in line here, because, it's going to cost you your head if you don't. And so they're ready for, the rebellion of the people here, and they're trying to make policy, as to what to do when they have to deal with some irate people, because this is going to really tick some people off. I wouldn't think of doing anything, and I'm not stupid about that sort of thing, but not everybody's going to react the same way. And I think that this is really pushy. This is really scary kind of stuff.
Well, the way when Keith Hicks said at the city council meeting, "I will never, ever, 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 read my lips, no new taxes." When he said all that,
Right.
and then in the little back room, and we caught him. There wasn't anybody else that reported this. It was just us. Okay, we're the only ones watching these guys. And when we reported that Keith said, "Well, I'll give it the good old college try," we put out the video, and then the Courier followed us. Oh yeah, well yeah, we saw that too. Yeah, sure you did. Okay, so when and then Keith got a lot of negative reaction from our show. He got it immediately from people who had seen the show. I've seen you say this. Now, where else are they going to see him saying it, right? They're not listening to the audio recordings. They weren't reading that in the Courier. They were days after us. So look, Keith is vulnerable to people's opinion. He still is. He still hasn't quite gone over the edge where Cheryl's long past that, buddy.
Right. No, that was my point earlier, is that
Keith may listen to what you have to say. The action to take, in my opinion, just my opinion on this, to prevent this, is to make them take the dang question off the ballot. Not that you saying we don't want any people's this. They've already said they know what the answer is. So why is it there?
Yeah.
Well, Dale. You're suggesting to eliminate options for the people. Why? You're just against speech. No.
Hey, the question doesn't mean anything, according to them. It's just an informational thing. So listen, I think in addition to that, confront them with what their intent is. Let's go. Listen.
Oh, my intent is just freedom of speech, gentlemen. Just like we always treat you at the weekly business sessions, our intent is just to present another option.
I'm not talking about asking a question. I'm talking about telling them we've got your number. I understand exactly what you're trying to do. Your intent is ultimately to enact 3453, and this question just gives you some rationale to do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. The people don't want it. You know they don't want it, and you want to ram this down their throat regardless of what they think, and it's wrong.
Well, the things that Simon has been saying, I wonder, boy, this is strange terminology, and it just clicked with me too, as it did with Simon, with Mike. Now we're both going to sound like nutcases, okay? But he keeps using the term "pull the trigger." Pull the trigger on 3453. When are we going to have to pull the trigger? I wonder if we're going to have to pull the trigger. Well, this may end up being pulling the trigger. Do you remember the footage that we showed you where they pulled the trigger? The FBI did.
Yeah, and
I'm drawing an analogy out about they may be worried that people would react. Well, Simon's constantly talking about pulling the trigger. He's not talking about the governor pulling the trigger.
Yeah, you know what the thing is that they don't. Simon certainly doesn't have the moral authority to be pulling decisions like this out of his backside. That's for sure. And Keith is just sort of there, hoping to last into year 5 so he can throw a few more bucks in his wallet. And Cheryl she's the evil ice queen you have to worry about here. And
she's absolutely convinced that we're insane.
Yeah, I know.
And if you're absolutely convinced, morally convinced in one case, politically convinced in another case, and maniacally convinced on the third case that we're the insane people who are not listening, we're the ones that are not listening. If that's the case, then you must do whatever's necessary, by any means necessary, to force this on us, because we're recalcitrant children who don't know what we want. Herman Bertschiger put it, there's no consensus. No consensus.
Yeah. Yes. We haven't given them the consensus that they wanted. Yeah, this is really scary, and I'm frustrated. And sometimes I don't have the best originations on something like this out of the gate. I'm going to have to think about this because the thing is that we have a system of governance that has, well, if this happens, then you do this and that and this. Once you get to this place, now what? Now what?
Right.
I mean, we're getting pushed up against the wall here. What are we supposed to do? I know this isn't the end of the world, but for crying out loud, we're supposed to have some say in this.
We're not going to have any say.
We're not going to have any say.
Look, let me reiterate this point. I know this will be the third time I've said it. Mike and I are not going to be the people to say, let's not have a dialogue. Come on. It's all that we do. This is show number 400 in a row. 400 every single night for 400 nights in a row. Dialogue? Oh, you have no new ideas. No new ideas? Okay, so of course we're entirely for the idea of dialogue. We're entirely for the idea of considering options. But there are some options that we don't want to happen. And the fact that you say, well, here's an option. This is not an option. This is insanity. And the idea that you would welcome them in. Well, let's have a dialogue about whether to let the vampire in the door. No, we're not going to have a dialogue about that. Okay. Yeah. So we need something symbolic from three people who cannot be trusted. I mean, even Keith X said at the city, I would never, ever do that. And then in the little back room, he forgets there's a camera. He says, well, I'm willing to give it a try. Later on, when he was asked, well, what do you mean give it a try? I meant I'll try to think about it. Try to think about it. Okay, look, that's stupid. Okay, sorry, that's just stupid. Nobody's going to believe that you're trying to think about it. Well, maybe in Keith's case. But we need something symbolic from these guys. Not something that would obliterate the First Amendment. Come on, no, that's not what I'm saying. We need something symbolic from these guys to say, we're not just telling you we're not. We're making sure that you know that we're not going to do it. And it's going to take more than Keith X sitting at a city council. I would never, ever do that. And then he changes his mind.
Well, the problem is that their influences inside government are all saying, do this, do it now. Ram it down their throats. We don't care about those people. We hate those people. Those people are keeping us from what we want. You know, and what kind of government is that? What country do you live in if that's what government thinks of you?
And I'll give you just another example. I was at the city council meeting last night, and I said Dan DeYoung is likely to run for county commissioner. The mayor, based on me saying Dan DeYoung is likely to run, I didn't say Dan DeYoung is likely to run for a county commissioner. You're criticizing a city councilor. I am. That's a personal attack. How is this a personal attack? Dan DeYoung is likely to run for county commissioner. That's a personal attack, and you must stop now. I'm cutting off your time. You're forced to sit down. I will not tolerate you saying such personal attacks. These guys are insane.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Dale? I don't know that I got any more for this here. I don't know what to think about this. This is, I hate coming to the end of the road. You know, I mean, what do? You can elect some new people, but you're going to have to deal with one round of this stuff because they're going to initiate the thing, and that's what, 18 months.
Yeah, well, it's February. Mm-hmm. No matter what happens to these guys, they're going to be in office until January. It's now February. We have to put up with whatever things and people are still going to listen to them. This is what some people in Salem want. And so they're still going to listen to these guys. And unless we send letters to the governor or a citizens task force, yeah, right. Oh, welcome. Hopefully in the future we won't have to deal with problems like yours ever again.
Listen, it's not going to do any good sending anything to the governor. You can see what she does with people who she's not politically aligned with. She sends the SWAT team after them. You know what? Listen, we've given this example before. When Occupy Wall Street came into Portland there, they were in a park for a year. They fed them and put porta potties there. These guys occupy some place out in the middle of nowhere that if they just forgot they were there, it probably wouldn't have been any kind of an issue. And you know, instead they had to round them up and kill somebody. You know, I mean, it's it is bizarre, and there is no help from those people. I hate living in occupied territory. Listen, I left California because it was occupied territory, and believe me, it's much worse than it is here. But this is getting, Oregon. I've always known that Oregon has California envy. They want to be just like them. They want to have just as many revenue streams. They want to have just as high a property tax, or as many revenue streams as sales tax, all kinds of stuff. California pulls in a lot of money and has dictatorial control in that state. And that's what I wanted to not be around. And here we are,
Changing the amount that you're taxed on your property from 300,000 to 500,000. Well, not, but
right.
It would be that appraisal thing. Look, well, I honestly never felt like we're such an edge, because they've got nothing to lose now.
Right.
Because they have nothing to lose, the only thing that we as citizens in general have going for us to defeat these laughing people who think that we're crazy, the only thing that we have is whatever's left of the dignity of Simon Hare, and some of the moral obligation that we hope is still a ghost of moral obligation is there in Keith Heck. You can forget about trying to convince
Cheryl
Walker to do anything.
It's done. And listen, to the state, we are the Lavoy Finicums of the Oregon populace,
right.
To her. So
if you call or send an email or come to the weekly business session and concentrate on talking to Keith Heck and Simon Hare, especially Keith. Keith did show his true feelings about backing a levy, because he doesn't change his mind. He just was saying one thing and feeling another. Right. Simon Hare has been talking about pulling the trigger on this thing, and now I finally understand what he means. So if you can work on those guys, and we would just barely make it, because you need to convince them not to do something for a year. Unless you want the governor to come down here and take over and then tell us what our taxes are going to be, and then we're obligated. It says here, it didn't say obligated in the beginning, did it? But it says obligated in the summary. We would be obligated to make up the other amount, obligated to do so. The county commissioners would be. How else are they going to do that? It's going to be through a property tax that's higher that they're obligated to levy onto us.
So tell me, is this document available on their website?
No, and I had to pay to get my hands on it. I believe that I am the only citizen in the universe that has a copy of this.
Well, could you get could you digitize that copy in some way, and then we can post that, because we certainly could, and that would.
Well, I was thinking about that before the show, and for sure, what we want to do is we want to take this show and put it on Facebook and say, really, if you haven't watched one of our shows, watch this show. Because there are some people who take it better, who assimilate information better by reading it. Mm-hmm. And it's a long thing to post. There are other people who assimilate it better by having it said to them, and they can listen along and yell at us or whatever. I'm going to say it for a fourth time. I'm not against the idea of sharing ideas. I'm not against the whole concept of the freedom of speech, and let's give people an option, and let's let them vote. And if this was anything other than what they've said they already know the answer, then that would maybe make some sense. But that's not what this is about. This is the plan. And you can only avoid this by putting pressure on, forget her, by putting pressure on the other two guys. It won't help to talk with Wally Hicks either. You're going to need to talk with the other two commissioners and convince them to hang fire. Shall we pull the trigger? No, hang fire. Holster your weapon. Send the MRAP back to the garage. In fact, sell that armored vehicle. Don't come into our neighborhood with this armored vehicle of this kind of stuff again. Stop asking us questions which are the worst questions. Oh, we should be able to ask any question. You really think you should be able to ask any question? Not this one. No, it's not okay. Is it okay with you? Here, let's put out this ballot advisory question. Is it okay with you if we totally ignore every time you voted? If we go with the minority instead of the majority? If we force this on, is that okay with you? Why would you even ask us that? Well, it's just a question. Stop asking those kinds of questions. Instead, concentrate on how can you be servants to the people who've told you what they want. Oh, there's no consensus. There is a consensus. Stop asking us for a consensus. We've given it to you already. You just don't like it. Get out of office. We're going to help you, but don't give us a poison pill in the meantime.
Yeah. Yep.